Hello, beautiful soul, and welcome to this week's intuitive flow session on the feminine frequency. I am so grateful and excited to have you here. Thank you for pressing play and tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about the topic of unhooking from codependency and anxious attachment. And this is a topic that has been coming up over and over again with my clients. And it's also been a deep personal journey that I've been on to really release these old patterns that were not serving me in my relationship so that I could call in a healthy, supportive, and passionate relationship that is deeply aligned and that is so different to anything that I've ever experienced before. So, before we dive into our topic for today, I want to share a special invitation with you for a live workshop that I'm going to be teaching on Saturday, February 22nd. This workshop is called Within, and it is all about cultivating safety, confidence, and worthiness from within so that you can feel more calm and more connected and cultivate deeper intimacy in your relationships, whether you are currently calling in a partner or you're in a relationship. This workshop is really going to support you to show up as your higher self in your relationships and also to attract healthier, more aligned relationships into your life. So to join me for the Within workshop, you can scroll down to the link in the show notes and it is completely free. And if you're listening to this after February 22nd, there will be a link for you to watch the replay in the show notes. All right, so let's just talk about this collective pattern that I am seeing in so many women at this time. We are unlearning this old, outdated model of codependency, this idea that we need someone else in order to be whole and complete, that we cannot survive or we're not okay, we can't be happy or we can't feel safe if we are on our own. And while it is true that there is a healthy version of codependency, meaning that we do actually need other people to survive, that it is healthy for us to have connections, romantic connections, friendships, relationships with our family, that even though we need that, that there is a difference when we are entering into those relationships from a place of lack or from a place of not feeling secure within ourselves. When we come from that place of feeling like we need someone else in order to be happy or to be okay, what happens is we end up attracting relationships and getting into relationships that are not aligned, meaning maybe you don't have the aligned values, or maybe it's not the most supportive relationship. You are engaging in that relationship from a place of trying to prove your worth or to get validation. And a lot of times these patterns are really subconscious. We don't even notice that we're doing them, right? So when you're coming from that place, not only do we attract relationships that might be with emotionally unavailable men, men who are not really ready for relationships, or maybe who are not able to show up and meet your needs, but also we end up staying in relationships for longer than we need to. And that happens for a lot of reasons. You know, when you're in a relationship, it might feel comfortable and it might feel like, oh my God, I don't want to end this relationship because I don't want to be alone. I don't want to have to go through the process of finding another partner. Or maybe it's because, oh, I really don't want to hurt this person and I don't want to disappoint them. And projecting that this person that you're in a relationship with won't be okay without you. So I imagine that in what I just shared, that you can relate to some aspects of, these different relationship dynamics. And what I've found is that when we learn how to cultivate this safety within our nervous systems, meaning that we can be aware when we have these emotional triggers that come up, when our childhood patterns come up, and when we can learn how to hold ourselves in that and comfort ourselves and reparent our inner child, that is when we can come to relationships from a more neutral and grounded place. It's also where we can stand in our power, meaning that we know that even if a relationship doesn't work out, that we are going to be okay. And also where we can come from that place of deep surrender and trust instead of grasping and trying to hold on to relationships or trying to force things to work. We can lean back and be in that place of trust that either it's this relationship that's going to work out or it's something better. And when we come from that place, what happens is that we can actually experience more authentic relationships where we can really truly be ourselves in relationships, where we can speak our truth and share what our needs are or share our boundaries and not be afraid that if we do that, then, if this person leaves, I'm not going to be okay, or that if I am my authentic self, that I'm not going to be loved. It's like when you come from that place of deep self-acceptance and from that place of inner confidence, we are not so focused on, gaining that validation or approval. And people can really feel that when we feel confident being ourselves and when we can really express ourselves, that actually is what allows for deeper intimacy and connection. So, I want to share a little story from one of my clients who is actually going to be joining me in the live workshop to share about her journey. But I want to show you the power of this work. So, when she first came to me, she was in a relationship dynamic where her partner was wanting to explore open relating. And even though that was not something that she truly wanted, she wanted to be in the relationship so badly that she said yes and started to explore that. Now, there were a lot of other things happening in their relationship dynamic where she didn't feel valued or where she didn't feel supported, but they were living together and they had been together for a few years and she didn't want to end the relationship. So it was causing a lot of emotional anxiety, causing a lot of kind of like this roller coaster experience where when things were good, it felt good. And when things were challenging, it like she couldn't focus on anything else. It was taking up so much bandwidth of her inner landscape to be in this constant back and forth push pull in this relationship dynamic. So, what we really worked on was focusing on her own self worth, focusing on her confidence, focusing on regulating her emotions, and being able to express her needs and her desires and her boundaries. And ultimately, she realized that the relationship was not in alignment with her values and was not supportive for her. And she ended up breaking up with her partner and ending the relationship. Now, fast forward, she moved out of the city she was living in. She followed her desires. She moved to a new place where she had really wanted to live that was more tropical and just, a different environment for her. And she ended up meeting someone else. And she called in a much healthier relationship because she had done a lot of the inner work on herself. Now, while this relationship was healthier, there was still a part of her that realized that it wasn't the whole package. It was like there were a lot of good pieces to it, but this relationship wasn't fulfilling all of her needs, and that it wasn't really like life, and it wasn't really the long-term partnership, the life partnership that she really wanted. So, because she had done a lot of work on herself, she was willing, even though it wasn't easy, to say, these are the things that I appreciate about this relationship, but I'm willing to let it go because I would rather be on my own than be in a relationship where I don't feel fulfilled in all the ways that I want to. And also, I want to create space for the full yes, for the full package of what I'm calling in. So after she let go of that relationship, she started dating again. And very quickly, she noticed that she was in a dynamic with a man who was not emotionally available. And it started to bring up a lot of anxiety for her. And she started to notice that she was future tripping. Like she was in this space of, like wanting to be in a relationship with him before they had really even spent a lot of time together, or before he shared that he was really ready to commit to that. And she caught that very quickly because of a lot of the work and the self awareness that she had. And she noticed that like her whole body and her whole system was stuck in this anxious attachment of, when is he going to write me back, and when are we going to hang out? And it was taking up so much of her energy and distracting herself from the things that she actually wanted to focus on. And so eventually she did end up connecting with him. They ended up having a conversation, and she realized that he wasn't emotionally available for a relationship. He wasn't ready for a relationship. And what I love that she shared was like, if someone's not ready for the whole package, I am so much happier on my own. There are so many things that I want to focus on right now. And unless a relationship is adding to my life and it is supportive for me, then that's all I'm available for. Otherwise, like, I'm good on my own. And so just really listening to that story and really seeing all of the different ways where she is living in her truth, where she's sharing her boundaries, where she's honoring herself. And while she isn't in that long term committed relationship yet, what I can tell you is that the woman that she has become through this journey, and who she is being and how she's honoring herself, that is a woman who is becoming a match for a man who is ready to commit, and for an aligned, healthy relationship dynamic. So I wanted to share that story as an example, because I know that the world of dating and relationships can feel really challenging, and the answer isn't always leaving the relationship. And I really want to emphasize that. I know I talk about that a lot because that really was my journey when I was in my mid 20s, and I ended up getting divorced because that relationship was definitely not in alignment for me. But the answer isn't always leaving the relationship. First, what I would say is that if you're feeling unsure about the relationship that you're in, and or you're like not feeling sure about someone, a situationship, someone that you're dating, what I would say is the first thing that needs to happen is really going deeper into understanding your own attachments, meaning looking at your childhood, looking at your relationship patterns, really taking ownership and responsibility of, how am I contributing to this dynamic? Right? It's so easy to blame other people when we're unhappy in a relationship or when we're feeling anxious. But the first place that we really need to look at is looking within ourselves. And when we do that, and when we take responsibility for, how am I contributing to this relationship dynamic, or the results that I'm having in my love life, that is when we have the power of choice, where we have the power to choose differently, to show up differently, to have different behaviors, to have different types of conversations. And that is the first place that we need to start, is looking within, both at our attachment patterns, really getting to know and understand your nervous system on an intimate level. So for a long time, I was cognitively aware of my patterns. I was aware of them in my mind, but I didn't really understand my nervous system. And what I've learned so much in my current relationship is, whenever we have experienced conflict, or whenever I've wanted to bring something to my partner that maybe I'm afraid to share, I have started to become so deeply attuned to what is happening in my nervous system. And when you can become deeply attuned to that, the next step is really learning, how can I actually provide comfort and safety, and how can I regulate my own nervous system? Because when our nervous system is activated, when we are dysregulated, which ultimately means when we're not calm, when we're not grounded, when we're not feeling open and curious, anything other than that really shows that there's a dysregulation in your nervous system. And when you are coming from a dysregulated space, the way that we act and the way that we behave in relationships is very different. And when we can come from that place of self comforting and self soothing and really giving ourselves that own reassurance, that own validation instead of seeking it externally, we can come to a place of groundedness and centeredness and then have authentic conversations where you are being truthful to yourself and where you're being truthful with the other person. And what that allows is for deeper understanding, deeper connection, and deeper intimacy. So, this is really the framework that I am so passionate about supporting women with, because I know what it's like to be in that place of feeling anxious about relationships, of being afraid of the unknown, of, being in that push pull dynamic in relationships where maybe you don't know where the other person stands or where you're not really speaking your truth. And when you're in that place, it doesn't feel expansive. It doesn't feel like supportive or energizing. It feels really depleting and draining. And then ultimately, that ends up taking away from your happiness. It also ends up taking away from your energy and capacity to focus on other things in your life that bring you joy, other friendships, other passion projects, other things that you want to create in your life. And so when you can experience this secure attachment within yourself, you're going to make better choices and be more discerning about what types of relationships, not just romantic relationships, but also friendships that you are engaging with. And you're also going to be more open and honest in those relationships. And what that creates is a lot more peace. It creates a lot more connection. It creates a lot more joy and ease in your relationships. And the last thing that I want to emphasize here is that, you know, yes, it is important to understand your patterns of being a people pleaser or being afraid of rejection, or being afraid of failing at a relationship. Like, those insights are really helpful. But for me, the deeper work comes back to your body, being able to regulate your nervous system, being able to navigate your emotions when you have heightened emotions. How do you respond to that? How do you move through that? How do you come back to your center faster? And when we feel safe and secure within ourselves and in our relationships, that's ultimately when we are able to open to greater levels of pleasure and physical intimacy. Because when our bodies feel safe, we feel more safe to express ourselves, we feel more safe to open, and we are able to receive more pleasure in our bodies when we have a relaxed and calm nervous system. So this is what I see available for all women, no matter how challenging your relationship journey has been, no matter whether you're currently in a relationship that feels out of alignment, or maybe you're in a relationship where you just know that there's more available for you. Or maybe you're single and you're like, I don't know if I can actually call in the relationship that I want. I want you to know that I've been there before, and I truly believe that healthy relationship dynamics and calling in an aligned partnership that is fulfilling, that is supportive, that is passionate, that is, truly what it is that, you're really wanting to be seen, wanting to be held in a relationship, that is totally possible. But it starts with you and it starts within. And that's why I'm so excited to teach this workshop coming up on February 22nd, because we're going to go into a lot of the deeper nuances of, what are the main intimacy blockers that you may or may not be aware of already, really digging deeper into uncovering some of the subconscious blocks that are standing in your way of having deep, healthy intimacy. We're also going to be talking about some of the ways and the steps that it takes to create secure attachment within yourself. And lastly, we're going to be going through a really deep embodiment practice to help you to embody your self-worth so that you can show up to relationships and have high standards and be able to honor yourself and really know the value and worth that you have to bring to the table. So, if you would like to dive deeper into this topic, I invite you to join me for Within. Again, you can scroll down to the link in the show notes to join me live for that experience. And if you're listening to this after the 22nd, there will be a link there for you to catch the replay. All right, my love, thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. If you enjoyed this podcast and you would like to spread the love, I invite you to take a screenshot and share it on your Instagram stories. You can tag me at Amy Natalie Co. You can also tag the podcast, Feminine Frequency _podcast, or you can leave a rating and review on Apple or Spotify. All of those are incredible ways to support this podcast and to spread the love to more women who are on their feminine frequency journey. Thank you so much for joining me today. Have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you next week for another episode of The Feminine Frequency.